Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about identifying angle relationships. So there's four different types of angles that we'll be talking about. The first one is called an acute angle. An acute angle is always less than 90 degrees. An obtuse angle is one that is more than 90 degrees. A right angle, which we've already worked with a lot this year, is equal to 90 degrees. And a straight angle is always equal to 180 degrees. So now we're going to talk about some different angle relationships. Complementary angles are any two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So when we look at these, we want to find out, are the following angles complementary? So I'm going to take this one here, which has a measure of 18 degrees, and this one here, which has a measure of 72 degrees, and we're going to add them together. If they add up to 90, then they are complementary. So 18 plus 72 does give us 90, so we can say yes, they are complementary. Another way that we can remember if something's complementary is that it will, if we have a single angle that's been bisected or have another line drawn through it, if it makes a corner, right? So if we get that corner, we call that complementary. When they have that box in there to make that corner, we call it complementary. So this one we can say yes. All right, you're going to have these three to try on your own. But first, let's take a look at the next angle relationship. Supplementary angles are any two angles that add up to 180. So are the following angles supplementary? And if so, what is the measure? So here we have that straight line. So another way to remember supplementary is straight. Supplementary, straight. Complementary, corner. Right? Complementary, corner. Supplementary, straight. So if we have a straight line, then we have supplementary angles. So we can say yes, we have that straight line. So we know that supplementary angles have to add up to 180. So how can I figure out what this missing angle here is? Well, if I know that this plus this has to be 180, I can do a little reverse math, and I can do 180 minus 82. And when I do that, I get 98 degrees. So now I know that x has a value of 98 degrees. All right, so here are some more try on your own. But first, let's come down and let's take a look at how we can identify supplementary and complementary angles from a diagram. So supplementary angles, again, are ones that form a straight line. And we're usually looking at pairs, so two angles that make those lines. So when we look, I'm going to look for specifically straight lines. I've got this one here that goes across. So to make that, I would look at 6, 1, and 2. All right, but we don't want all three of those angles. We want a pair. So then I can look at this straight line, and I can see that we've got 6 and 5. So together, 6 and 5 will add up to that 180 degrees. And it doesn't matter which order you put them in, whether you say angle 6 and then angle 5, or angle 5 and then angle 6. All right, complementary angles, remember, have to add up to 90, and they always make a corner. We look for that box. So here's one angle all by itself, right, is complementary. We can also say that angle 5 is is 90 degrees. Okay, angle 5 and angle 6 are both made up from the same two straight lines. So we know that both of those are 90. All right, but we are looking for a pair of angles that will come together to make that 90 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I can take from angle 1 to angle 2, and I can make a box. I could also take from angle 3 to angle 4 and make a box. So in both cases, this pair here makes 90 degrees, and this pair here makes 90 degrees. So the one that I wrote in here was angle pair 1 and 2, but we could also use 3 and 4. All right, this is going to be a try on your own, just identifying which two pairs are supplementary and which two pairs are complementary. All right, vertical angles are two angles that are opposite. They share a vertex, which means where they come together, and are equal to each other. So when we have two lines that intersect like this, cross like this, we now form four angles. They labeled one as 45 degrees, one is R, one is T, and or S, and one is T. All right, so the vertical angles say that two angles that are opposite from each other. So this 45-degree angle and this angle here, angle S, are both complementary angles. Angle R and angle T are also complementary angles, or vertical angles, I'm sorry. They are across from each other. So 45 and S are vertical angles, R and T are vertical angles. So they wanted to know which angle is vertical to 45. We would say the S. So angle S. Now one of the other things that they've said about vertical angles is that they are equal to each other. So if this angle is 45, then angle S is also going to be 45 degrees. All right, we have a try on your own, but first we're going to talk about one more angle relationship, adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that are beside each other, next to each other, that share a common point and a common side. So these two angles are adjacent angles. They share a vertex, which is that point right there, and a side. In this case, angle A and angle B are not adjacent angles because there's an angle in between them. Okay, so they may share a common vertex, but they do not share a side. Angle A and angle B, while they share a common side, do not share a common vertex. So these are also not adjacent angles. All right, in the diagram below, that should say below, not above, name a pair of angles that are not adjacent. Okay, so they're not adjacent. And then we're going to name a pair of angles that are adjacent. All right, so again, adjacent means they have to be next to each other. So if I wanted to pick out ones that were not adjacent, I'd have to pick out ones that were not next to each other. So if I started with A, then I could say that another angle that's not adjacent to A could be C. We could also say that A and D are not adjacent. They do not share a common side. We could also say that angle B and angle D are not adjacent. All right, well, now we want to look at two angles that are adjacent. Well, if I started with A, what angle is directly next to it? Well, we could say angle B. They share a common vertex and a common side. We could also say that B and C are adjacent, and we could say that C and D are adjacent. All right, and now for our last section. This is your last try on your own. So this brings us to the end of our notes. Make sure that you complete all your try on your owns, and I will see you in class next time.